There's a moment. A moment when the script flips. When what you've been told your entire life suddenly doesn't match what you're seeing with your own eyes. For millions of men across the world, that moment is happening right now. It's not loud. It's not a revolution with banners and slogans. It's quiet. Personal. A slow-burning realization that spreads through late-night conversations, through Reddit threads at 2 a.m., through the exhausted silence of a man sitting alone in his apartment wondering what the hell just happened. They're waking up. And what they're waking up to is this: the relationship landscape has changed. Fundamentally. Irreversibly. And nobody prepared them for it. Let me paint you a picture. A guy in his late 20s. Good job. Kind heart. Reasonably attractive. He does everything right. He's respectful. He listens. He's emotionally available. God, is he emotionally available? He reads the articles. He goes to therapy. He's deconstructed his masculinity and rebuilt it according to the blueprint he was given. And yet, nothing works. The dates feel transactional. The connections feel shallow. The women he meets seem perpetually dissatisfied, perpetually scanning the room for someone better, perpetually 1 foot out the door. He's confused. He's exhausted. And worst of all, he's starting to feel like maybe he's the problem. But here's what's actually happening. He's experiencing what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the mental stress of holding two contradictory beliefs at once. Belief 1, if I do X, Y, and Z, I will find meaningful connection. Belief 2, I've done X, Y, and Z, and it's not working. When these beliefs collide, something breaks. And that breaking point, that's the awakening. Now, let's be very clear about something. This is not about demonizing women. This is not about blame. This is not about playing victim or pointing fingers. This is about acknowledging a massive cultural shift that's happened in the span of a single generation, a shift so profound that it's left an entire gender confused, frustrated, and searching for answers. The rules changed. Nobody announced it. Nobody sent out a memo. One day men woke up and realized they were playing a game where the rules were being rewritten in real time, and nobody was explaining what the new rules were. Dating apps promised connection but delivered commodification. Social media promised authenticity but delivered performance. Modern feminism promised partnership but sometimes delivered contradiction. And men, good men, trying their best, are caught in the middle, wondering why their efforts feel invisible. The data backs this up. Surveys show that male loneliness is at an all-time high. Sexlessness among young men has tripled in the past decade. More men than ever report feeling opted out of the dating market entirely, not because they're misogynists, but because they're exhausted. Because the emotional cost of constant rejection, constant confusion, constant "you're doing it wrong" has become unbearable. This isn't a small thing. This is a psychological crisis hiding in plain sight. And here's the thing about awakenings, they're uncomfortable. They're disorienting. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you notice the patterns, the contradictions, the double standards, once you recognize that maybe, just maybe, you weren't crazy for feeling the way you felt, everything changes. Some men respond with anger. Some with apathy. Some with a deep, aching sadness for what they thought relationships would be. But all of them share one thing, a recognition that the fairy tale they were sold doesn't exist. Not anymore. Maybe it never did. So what are they waking up to, exactly? That's what we're here to explore. Not with bitterness. Not with resentment. But with clarity. With honesty. With the kind of uncomfortable truth that makes you squirm but also makes you free. Because here's the rule card moment, the thing you need to understand before we go any deeper. The truth doesn't care about your feelings. But it will set you free. And the truth is this: modern dating and relationships have been fundamentally transformed by technology, social dynamics, and cultural shifts in ways that disproportionately disadvantage average men, and nobody wants to talk about it honestly. But we're going to. Starting with the thing that changed everything, the paradox of infinite choice and the death of commitment. Imagine walking into an ice cream shop. There are 3 flavors: chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. You pick one. You enjoy it. Life is good. Now imagine walking into that same shop, but this time there are 300 flavors. Salted caramel pretzel, lavender honey, matcha white chocolate chip. The list goes on. And on. And on. You stand there, paralyzed, overwhelmed. You finally pick one, but the entire time you're eating it, you're wondering if you should have picked something else. You're not savoring what you have. You're mourning what you gave up. This is called the paradox of choice. And it's destroying modern relationships. Before dating apps, before social media, before the algorithm decided who you'd see next, meeting someone was a matter of proximity and circumstance. You met people at work, through friends, at the bar on Friday night. The pool was limited. And because the pool was limited, you invested. You gave things a chance. You worked through rough patches because finding someone else wasn't as simple as swiping right. But now we live in the age of infinite scroll. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Instagram DMs. Every single day, a constant stream of faces, bodies, possibilities. The illusion of infinite choice. The promise that somewhere out there, in that endless digital catalogue of human beings, is someone perfect. Someone who checks every box. Someone who requires no compromise, no patience, no work. And here's what that does to the human brain. It makes commitment feel like a loss. Psychologists call this opportunity cost anxiety. Every time you say yes to one person, you're saying no to 1,000 others. And when you can see those 1,000 others, when they're right there in your pocket, glowing on a screen at 11 p.m., the person sitting across from you at dinner starts to feel optional. This affects everyone. But it affects men and women differently. Women, on average, receive significantly more attention on dating apps than men. Studies show that the top 10% of men receive about 60% of female attention, while the bottom 50% receive almost none. For women, the problem isn't scarcity, it's abundance. Too many options. Too much noise. The paradox of choice on steroids. For men, especially average men, the problem is invisibility. Sending out dozens of messages that go unanswered. Matching with someone only to be ghosted after 3 texts. Watching the women they're interested in perpetually hold out for someone taller, richer, more exciting, someone from that top 10%. Let me tell you about Tom. Tom is 29. Software engineer. Makes decent money. Funny guy. Loves hiking and trying new restaurants. 18 months ago, he downloaded Tinder with genuine optimism. He wanted to meet someone real. Build something meaningful. Month 1. Excited. He swipes, he matches occasionally, he goes on a few dates. They're fine. Nothing sparks, but that's okay. He's patient. Month 6. Confused. He's putting in effort. Thoughtful messages. Planning actual dates, not just Netflix and chill. But every woman he meets seems distracted. They check their phones during dinner. They mention their exes unprompted. They talk about the other guys they're seeing like his one applicant in a job interview pool. Month 12. Exhausted. He realizes he's not a person to these women. He's an option. A backup plan. Someone to give attention to while they wait for someone better to come along. Month 18. Done. Tom deletes the apps. Not out of anger. Out of self-preservation. Because he finally understood something, you cannot compete with infinity. This is hedonic adaptation in action. The more options we have, the less we appreciate any single one. The grass is always greener. The next swipe is always more exciting than the person in front of us. And here's the brutal part, this isn't anyone's fault. Not really. This is human psychology colliding with technology that we were never designed to handle. Our brains evolved for small tribes. For scarcity. For choosing one partner from a pool of maybe 20 people. We did not evolve for a pool of 20,000. We don't have the cognitive infrastructure to handle it. So what happens? Commitment dies. Why settle down with someone who's good enough when your phone is constantly suggesting that someone perfect is just one more swipe away? Why work through conflict when you could just move on? Why invest emotionally when the cost of leaving is so low? Men are waking up to this reality. They're realizing that the women they're dating aren't actually looking for a partner. They're looking for a perfect fantasy, and they're willing to scroll forever to find it. The result? A generation of people who are technically dating but never actually connecting. Who are surrounded by options but drowning in loneliness. Who have more access to potential partners than any humans in history, and less commitment than ever before. The marketplace has replaced the relationship. And everyone's losing. But the paradox of choice is only part of the story. Because there's something even more insidious happening. Something that makes real connection nearly impossible in the modern world. It's the performance. The mask. The carefully curated lie that social media has convinced us is more important than the truth. Who are you when nobody's watching? That's the question that used to define authenticity. The person you were in private. The unfiltered self. The version of you that existed without an audience. But here's the terrifying truth, for millions of people today, that person doesn't exist anymore. Because there's always an audience now. Always a camera. Always a story to post, a moment to capture, a performance to give. And somewhere along the way, the performance became the person. This is the social media effect. And it's poisoning relationships from the inside out. Let me explain what's happening psychologically. When you post something on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever platform, you're not just sharing a moment. You're conducting an experiment. You're asking a question, do people approve of me? And then you wait. You refresh. You check the likes, the comments, the shares. Each notification triggers a dopamine hit. Each like is a microdose of validation. Each comment is proof that you matter, that you're seen, that you're valued. This isn't vanity. This is addiction. Literal, neurochemical addiction. And here's where it gets dark. Once you're addicted to external validation, you stop being yourself. You start being whoever gets the most likes. You curate. You filter. You perform. You learn which angles work, which captions get engagement, which version of your life looks most impressive. You become a brand. A product. A carefully constructed illusion designed to extract approval from strangers. And the person underneath. The real you. That person gets buried. Forgotten. Irrelevant. Now imagine dating someone like this. Imagine being with someone who can't have a private moment because every moment is content. Who can't enjoy a sunset without photographing it. Who can't have a meaningful conversation without thinking about how it would sound in a caption. Imagine being in a relationship where your partner cares more about how the relationship looks than how it feels. That's what men are waking up to. The realization that they're not dating a person, they're dating a persona. A performance. A highlight reel with no substance behind it. Let's talk about attachment theory for a second. In psychology, there are different attachment styles, ways we bond with others based on our early experiences. Secure attachment is healthy, trust, consistency, emotional availability. Anxious attachment is fear-based, constant need for reassurance, fear of abandonment, clinging behavior. Social media is an anxious attachment factory. Think about it. If your sense of self-worth depends on how many likes you get, you're in a constant state of anxiety. You're always scanning for threats. Always wondering if you're good enough. Always needing more validation to fill a hole that never gets filled. And when you bring that energy into a relationship, it's exhausting. You're dating someone who needs constant reassurance. Who spirals when you don't text back fast enough. Who interprets silence as rejection. Who needs you to perform affection publicly to prove it's real. Who measures your love not by how you treat them in private, but by how you present them to the world. It's not intimacy. It's performance anxiety for two. Here's a story. Her name was Maya. 26. Influencer, though she hated that word. She had 40,000 followers. Beautiful photos. Inspirational quotes. Perfect aesthetic. Her boyfriend, Jason, thought he'd won the lottery. Dating someone that attractive, that interesting, that alive. But 6 months in, Jason started to notice things. They couldn't go to a restaurant without Maya spending 15 minutes staging photos of the food. They couldn't have a date night without it being interrupted by just one quick video that took 30 takes. Their most intimate moments, a kiss, a laugh, a vulnerable conversation, were immediately followed by Maya grabbing her phone to post about it. One night, Jason asked her, "Do you love me, or do you love the idea of being in love?" She didn't have an answer. Because she didn't know. The performance had consumed the person. The mask had become the face. This is what men are encountering everywhere. Women who are so addicted to the validation, the attention, the performance, that they've lost the ability to just be. To exist without an audience. To be present without being perceived. And here's the cruelest part, it's not entirely their fault. Society has taught women that their value is in their appearance, their desirability, their ability to be admired. Social media took that ancient wound and turned it into an algorithm. It weaponized insecurity and called it empowerment. It said, your worth is measured in followers. Your life only matters if people watch it. And millions of women believed it. So now you have a generation of women who are phenomenal at seeming, at appearing confident, successful, happy, but who are absolutely terrified of being seen without the filter, of being vulnerable without the safety net of a screen, of being loved for who they really are instead of who they pretend to be. Men feel this. They sense it. The emotional unavailability disguised as openness. The intimacy that's always one step removed. The feeling that they're not in a relationship with a person, they're in a relationship with a brand. And they're tired. You cannot build a life with a performance. You can only build a life with a person. But even this isn't the full picture. Because beneath the paradox of choice and the performance addiction, there's something even more confusing happening. Something that's making men feel like they're losing their minds. It's the contradictions. The impossible standards. The moving goalposts that no matter how fast you run, you can never reach. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to hit a target that keeps moving? You aim. You fire. And just before your shot lands, the target shifts. So you adjust. You aim again. You fire again. And it moves. Again. And again. And again. Eventually, you stop trying. Not because you're weak. Not because you're a quitter. But because you realize the game is rigged. The target was never meant to be hit. This is what modern men are experiencing. And it's breaking them. They call it many things. Mixed signals. Double standards. Hypocrisy. But the psychological term is more precise. Conflicting role expectations. And it's one of the most exhausting things a human being can endure. Here's what it looks like in practice. Be masculine. But not toxic. Be confident. But not arrogant. Be ambitious. But not neglectful. Be sensitive. But not weak. Be a provider. But don't think that matters. Be a leader. But always defer. Be strong. But always vulnerable. Be protective. But never controlling. Be passionate. But never jealous. Do you see what's happening here? Every single positive masculine trait has been pathologized. Every traditional role has been simultaneously demanded and condemned. Men are being told to be everything and nothing, all at once. And when they inevitably fail, because nobody can thread that needle perfectly, they're told the problem is them. Their fragility. Their insecurity. Their inability to handle a strong, independent woman. But here's the truth, this isn't about strength or weakness. This is about psychological abuse disguised as progress. Let me take you inside the mind of a man navigating this landscape. His name is Marcus. 32. Doctor. Smart, grounded, emotionally intelligent. He meets a woman named Jess. She's incredible on paper. Successful career. Independent. Confident. She talks about equality, about partnership, about not needing a man to complete her. Marcus loves this. He wants an equal. A partner. Someone who shows up with their own life, their own ambitions, their own sense of self. So he treats her as an equal. He suggests they split bills. He doesn't always initiate, he waits for her to reach out sometimes too. He shares his own vulnerabilities, his own struggles, because that's what emotional availability looks like, right? And slowly, subtly, Jess starts to pull away. She doesn't say it directly, but Marcus feels it. The respect fading. The attraction dimming. One night, after a few drinks, she finally admits it, I don't know. I just don't feel like you're really leading anymore. Marcus is stunned. But you said you wanted equality. You said you didn't want traditional gender roles. I do, she says. But I also want to feel. I don't know, like you've got things handled. Like you're in control. Marcus sits there, silent, because he's just experienced the contradiction firsthand. She wants equality, but also wants him to lead. She wants independence, but also wants him to provide. She wants him to be vulnerable, but loses attraction when he is. And this isn't Jess being cruel or manipulative. This is her being human. This is biology and culture crashing into each other. This is thousands of years of evolutionary psychology colliding with 30 years of social change. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Many women say they want one thing, but respond emotionally to another. They say they want a man who's sensitive and open. But they lose attraction to men who cry too much or seem too needy. They say they want equality. But they still expect men to pursue, to plan, to pay. They say they don't care about money. But study after study shows women are less likely to date men who earn less than them. This is what psychologists call stated preferences versus revealed preferences. What people say they want versus what they actually choose. And men are caught in the gap. Trying to be what women say they want, only to be rejected for not being what women actually respond to. The exhaustion is real. The confusion is real. And the resentment, though many men try to suppress it, is real too. Now let's talk about emotional labor. There's a narrative in modern discourse that women carry all the emotional labor in relationships. The planning, the remembering, the emotional caretaking. And sometimes, that's true. But here's what nobody talks about. The emotional labor men are expected to carry. The labor of never showing too much weakness. The labor of always being the strong one, the stable one, the one who doesn't fall apart. The labor of pursuing, of planning dates, of initiating sex, of keeping the attraction alive while being told they're doing it wrong. The labor of absorbing criticism, processing endless complaints about how they're failing, and still showing up with patience and love. The labor of being financially responsible not just for themselves, but often for the lifestyle expectations that come with modern dating. The labor of being a mind reader, because God forbid you actually have to ask what's wrong instead of just knowing. Men are tired. Not because they don't want to contribute. Not because they're lazy or selfish. But because the goalposts keep moving, the rules keep changing, and no matter what they do, it's never quite enough. And here's what's happening as a result. More men are opting out. Not out of hatred. Not out of spite. But out of self-preservation. They're looking at the cost-benefit analysis of modern relationships and realizing the math doesn't work. The emotional energy required, the constant walking on eggshells, the performance of being perfectly balanced between 50 contradictory ideals, it's not sustainable. So they choose solitude. They choose peace. They choose video games and friendships and hobbies and careers. They choose themselves. And society calls them weak. Immature. Man-children who can't handle a real woman. But maybe, just maybe, they're the sanest ones in the room. You cannot meet someone where they refuse to stand still. And you cannot love someone who's weaponized confusion. So where does that leave us? In a world where choice has become paralysis, where? That's the question. The real question. The one that matters. And the answer isn't what you think. So here we are. Standing in the wreckage of what relationships used to be. Surrounded by paradoxes and performances and impossible standards. Watching commitment die. Watching authenticity fade. Watching good people give up on connection entirely. And the question that matters is this: what now? Do we surrender? Do we become cynical? Do we let bitterness calcify into hatred and spend the rest of our lives alone, angry, and convinced that love is dead? Or do we do something harder? Do we grow up? Because here's the truth that nobody wants to hear: the world has changed. Relationships have changed. And sitting around mourning what used to be, or what you thought it should be, is a waste of your one precious life. You can't control the culture. You can't control dating apps. You can't control how social media has rewired human connection. You can't control what women want or don't want, what they say versus what they do, the contradictions they carry. But you can control yourself. Your choices. Your standards. Your response. And that small circle of control, is where your power lives. Let's start with the most important thing, self-awareness. If you're walking around bitter and angry, convinced that all women are shallow, manipulative, or broken, you're not protecting yourself. You're poisoning yourself. Bitterness doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you small. Yes, the patterns we've discussed are real. Yes, the frustrations are valid. Yes, the game has changed in ways that are often unfair. But the moment you decide that every woman is the same, the moment you stop seeing individuals and start seeing stereotypes, you've lost. You've become the very thing you claim to oppose, someone who judges people not for who they are, but for what category they belong to. So the first step is this: stay open. Stay discerning. But stay open. Learn to see the difference between recognizing patterns and becoming prejudiced. Between having standards and having contempt. Between protecting your peace and closing your heart. Now let's talk about boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. Walls keep everyone out. Boundaries are gates. They let the right people in and keep the wrong people out. If you're dating someone who's addicted to social media validation, you have a choice. You can complain about it endlessly. You can try to change them. Or you can set a boundary: I need a partner who's present, who values our private moments more than public perception. If that's not you, that's okay, but it means we're not compatible. Simple. Clear. No drama. No blame. Just honesty. If you're with someone who gives you contradictory expectations, who demands you lead but resents when you do, who wants equality but expects provision, you can have a conversation. I'm confused about what you actually want from me. Let's get clear. Because I can't hit a moving target. And if they can't clarify, if they gaslight you, tell you you're being difficult, accuse you of not understanding them, that's your answer. Walk away. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Here's the thing about modern dating: there are good women out there. Women who are self-aware, who've done their own work, who aren't drowning in performance addiction or validation seeking, who know what they want and communicate it clearly, who understand that relationships require reciprocity, effort, and grace. But you won't find them if you're not one of those people yourself. If you're out here playing games, keeping options open, being emotionally unavailable while demanding emotional availability, you're contributing to the problem. You're part of the cycle. So ask yourself, what kind of partner would your ideal partner want? Are you emotionally mature? Are you self-sufficient? Are you clear about what you're looking for? Are you willing to communicate honestly, to be vulnerable without being weak, to show up consistently even when it's hard? Or are you just another person swiping through options, looking for perfection, keeping one foot out the door? The brutal truth is this: most people are not relationship ready. Not because they're bad people, but because they haven't done the work. They haven't healed their wounds, confronted their patterns, built their self-worth from the inside out. And you can't build a healthy relationship with an unhealthy person, including yourself. Let's talk about choosing wisely. Pay attention early. Watch how someone treats service workers. Watch how they talk about their exes. Watch how they handle conflict, disappointment, stress. Watch whether their actions match their words. Don't ignore red flags because someone's attractive. Don't overlook incompatibility because you're lonely. Don't convince yourself you can fix someone or that things will get better once they just understand you. People show you who they are. Believe them. And if who they are doesn't align with what you need, let them go. Not with bitterness. Not with judgment. But with clarity and self-respect. Here's a framework that might help. Ask yourself 3 questions about anyone you're considering building something with. 1. Do they make my life better or more complicated? 2. Do I feel at peace with them, or constantly anxious? 3. Are they growing, or are they stuck? If the answers are complicated, anxious, and stuck, move on. No matter how attractive they are. No matter how much potential you see. No matter how good it feels in isolated moments. Because potential is not reality. And attraction without compatibility is just chemistry that will eventually burn out. Now, the hardest part, acceptance. Accept that modern dating is harder than it used to be. Accept that finding real connection takes time, patience, and resilience. Accept that you will meet people who disappoint you, who ghost you, who waste your time. Accept that this is part of the process, not a reflection of your worth. Accept that you might be single for a while. And that being single is not a failure, it's a choice to wait for something real rather than settle for something convenient. Accept that you cannot change the culture. You can only change how you move through it. And here's the most important acceptance of all. Accept that relationships are not the measure of your value as a man. Your worth is not determined by how many matches you get, how many dates you go on, whether you're in a relationship or not. Your worth is intrinsic. It exists independent of female approval, social status, or romantic success. The moment you internalize that, the moment you stop seeking validation from external sources and start building it from within, everything changes. You stop being desperate. You stop accepting less than you deserve. You stop performing. You start being. And ironically, that's when you become most attractive. Because people can sense authenticity. They can feel when someone is grounded in themselves, when someone knows their value and isn't willing to compromise it. The strongest position you can occupy is not needing someone, but choosing them anyway. So here's the final wisdom, the thing you need to carry forward. This isn't about men versus women. This isn't a gender war. This is about human beings trying to navigate connection in a world that's become incredibly complicated, incredibly confusing, incredibly hostile to vulnerability. Women are struggling too. They're drowning in options that don't satisfy them. They're performing for validation they never feel. They're caught between evolutionary drives and cultural expectations, trying to figure out what they actually want. Everyone's confused. Everyone's hurting. Everyone's trying to protect themselves from getting hurt again. The path forward isn't cynicism. It's not bitterness. It's not giving up on love entirely. The path forward is consciousness. It's choosing to see clearly, to love wisely, to protect your peace while keeping your heart open, to recognize the patterns without becoming cruel, to demand better while being better. It's hard. It's lonely sometimes. It's easier to just check out, to go your own way, to decide that relationships aren't worth the effort. But here's what I believe, connection is still worth it. Love is still worth it. Not the performative, social media version. Not the transactional, options-driven version. But the real thing. The rare, authentic, reciprocal thing. It's just harder to find now. And that means you have to be more intentional, more patient, more discerning. The truth isn't that modern women are broken. The truth is that modern dating is broken. And the only way through it is to be someone who refuses to break with it. Stay clear. Stay strong. Stay open. The right person is out there doing the same work you are. Seeing the same chaos. Choosing the same path. And when you find each other, it will make sense. All of it.